A flimsy bank receipt, hidden in my mother-in-law's purse, became the fuse that detonated my marriage and the future I thought we were building. The crinkle of the receipt in my hand was louder than a gunshot in the quiet of our apartment. It was thin, flimsy, a little scrap of paper that held the weight of our entire financial future. I'd found it tucked into the side pocket of my mother-in-law's handbag while looking for her reading glasses, which she'd sworn she'd lost. She hadn't, of course. They were on her head. But in my search, I found this, a bank receipt, dated this morning. Withdrawal, $200. Current balance, 34.15s. My blood ran cold. Her entire monthly pension, gone. All $200 of it. Vanished on the first of the month, the very day it was deposited. My husband, Mark, and I had been walking on eggshells for weeks, cutting back on everything. We were eating pasta and sauce 5 nights a week. I was cutting his hair myself in the bathroom, and we'd canceled our streaming services, all to scrape together every last penny for the down payment on our first home. And his mother, Elena, had just vaporized an amount that would have taken us 3 months to save. I knew exactly where it went. I didn't even have to ask. Let me back up. Elena moved in with us a year ago, after my father-in-law passed away. The big family house was too much for her to handle alone, both emotionally and financially. Mark, being the good son he is, immediately offered our spare bedroom. I agreed, of course. What else could I do? We set up a simple, fair arrangement. We wouldn't charge her rent, but her modest pension would go towards her personal expenses, her share of the groceries, and a small contribution to the utilities. It wasn't much, but it was an agreement. It was supposed to help us all, to ease the burden so we could finally get ahead. For the first 2 months, it worked beautifully. Elena was a quiet roommate, mostly keeping to herself. Then the calls started. Calls from Chloe, Mark's younger sister. Chloe is what you might call a free spirit, a 32-year-old artist who has never held a job for more than 6 months. She's always on the verge of her big break, which always requires a sudden, urgent infusion of cash. The first time, it was a deposit for a life-changing pottery workshop in another state. Elena came to us wringing her hands, her eyes filled with crocodile tears. She just needs a little help to get on her feet, she'd pleaded. Mark, bless his soft heart, caved. He gave his mother a few $100s from our savings to lend to Chloe. I bit my tongue. A month later, it was a catastrophic car repair that, if not fixed immediately, would mean she couldn't get to her non-existent job. Again, Elena emptied her account. She ate our food, used our electricity, and contributed nothing. When I gently brought it up, she burst into tears. "Are you saying my daughter should be stranded? That I should be a bad mother?" Mark pulled me aside and told me to be more sensitive. This became the pattern. Every month, like clockwork, Chloe would have a new crisis. A vet bill for a cat she'd found 2 days earlier. A plane ticket to a friend's wedding she couldn't possibly miss. A security deposit for a new apartment after being evicted from her last one for, you guessed it, not paying rent. And every month, Elena's pension would disappear into the black hole that was Chloe's finances. My contributions to our house fund slowed to a trickle, while Mark started picking up extra shifts, his face etched with exhaustion. But this month was supposed to be different. We had a serious talk with Elena last week. Mark finally put his foot down. He showed her our savings spreadsheet, the pathetic number blinking on the screen. He explained that we were so close to our goal and that her contribution, as we agreed, was critical. "No more, Mom," he'd said, his voice firm but kind. "Chloe is an adult. You can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep her warm. We need you to stick to the plan. Just for a few more months." Elena had looked him in the eye, her own welling with tears. She'd placed a trembling hand on his. "You're right, my son. You and Sarah have done so much for me. I'm so sorry, I promise. This month it will all go towards the house, for our family." I had almost believed her. Now, holding this receipt, a bitter, hot rage washed over me. The lie was so blatant, so disrespectful. I walked out of the bedroom, receipt clutched in my fist, and found her sitting on the sofa, watching a game show and sipping the expensive tea I had bought. She smiled at me, a sweet grandmotherly smile that made my stomach turn. "Did you find my glasses, dear?" she asked, her voice like honey. I didn't smile back. I unfolded the receipt and held it out for her to see. "I found this instead, Elena." Her smile wavered, then vanished. She wouldn't look at the paper. She just stared at the television, her knuckles white on her teacup. "I don't know what that is." "It's a withdrawal slip for your entire pension. From this morning," I said, my voice dangerously calm. Mark walked in from the kitchen then, holding 2 plates of our budget-friendly spaghetti. He saw my face, then the receipt, and his shoulders slumped. He knew. "Mom?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elena finally looked away from the TV, her expression shifting from feigned ignorance to wounded fragility. "She needed it, Marky," she whispered, her eyes pleading with her son, completely ignoring me. Her landlord was going to kick her out. What was I supposed to do? Let my baby girl sleep on the street? The same old story, the same old manipulation, and I just snapped. All the skipped lunches, the extra hours, the constant stress, it all came boiling to the surface. I looked at this woman who was actively sabotaging our future, living in our home for free while funneling her money to her deadbeat daughter, and I felt nothing but ice in my veins. "Where's your pension, Elena?" I asked, my voice flat. "Sent it to your daughter again? Then go live with her, not in our apartment." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena's jaw dropped. Mark stared at me, his face a mask of shock and horror. For a moment, I thought his mother might faint, but she didn't. Her expression hardened, the soft, helpless grandmother vanishing, replaced by something cold and calculating. She slowly stood up, placed her teacup on the coffee table with a deliberate click, and walked towards her bedroom without a single word. Mark started to say my name, a protest forming on his lips, but was cut off by the sound of her bedroom door slamming shut. A few moments later, we heard the distinct sounds of drawers being pulled open and hangers scraping along a metal rod. She was actually packing. A wave of panic and triumph washed over me at the same time. Then, Mark's phone buzzed on the counter. He picked it up, his eyes never leaving mine. His face went pale. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a new kind of panic. "It's Chloe," he whispered. "She's calling me." Mark stared at the phone as if it were a venomous snake. Chloe's face was on the screen, a smiling selfie from a beach trip I was certain her mother had paid for. The phone buzzed again, insistent. I crossed my arms, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. The second wave of the attack. First the martyr, now the screeching banshee. "Don't answer it," I said, my voice low. "You know what this is." He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Sarah, I have to. What if something's wrong?" "Something is wrong, Mark," I shot back. "She just fleeced your mother for over $1,000 that we needed. The only thing wrong is that her gravy train is about to be derailed." He ignored me, his thumb swiping across the screen. He put the phone to his ear. "Chloe, what's going on?" He listened, his face slowly losing all its color. I couldn't hear her words, but I could hear the tone, a high-pitched, frantic whine that I knew all too well. Mark's eyes flickered over to me, filled with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "She did not throw her out," he said into the phone, his voice strained. He took a few steps away, turning his back to me as if to shield his sister from my presence. "No, that's not what happened." "Chloe, calm down." "No, she just said, look, it's complicated." I let out a short, bitter laugh. Complicated? It was the simplest thing in the world. His mother broke a promise, stole from our future, and I called her on it. End of story. But in their family, reality was always complicated. It was a web of excuses, justifications, and emotional blackmail, and Mark was caught right in the center. "Let me talk to her," he was saying now. "Put Mom on the phone." A pause. "What do you mean she's too upset to talk? She was the one who—" "Chloe, stop yelling. You're not helping." He pinched the bridge of his nose, the plates of spaghetti forgotten on the counter, the smell of garlic and tomato now seeming like a cruel joke about the domestic peace we'd once had. Finally, he hung up. He stood with his back to me for a long moment, his shoulders hunched. When he turned around, his face was a storm cloud. "She said you screamed at Mom, that you threw her things into the hallway and told her you wished she was dead." I blinked. The sheer audacity of the lie was breathtaking. "Are you serious? You were standing right here. You heard what I said." "I heard you tell my mother to get out of our house," he fired back, his voice rising. "What did you expect her to do? And of course she's going to be hysterical when she calls her daughter. Chloe said she's sobbing so hard she can barely breathe." "Oh, I'm sure she is," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "She's got the performance down to an art. She's probably in her room right now texting Chloe exactly what to say to you. This is what they do, Mark. They create a crisis, and then they team up to make you the bad guy for not wanting to drown with them. She's my mother, Sarah. And I'm your wife. What about our team? What about the house we're trying to build? What about the promises she made to you, to your face, less than a week ago? Does any of that matter? Or are we just a bank account for your sister's irresponsible life, with your mother as the willing accomplice?" We were standing in the middle of our living room, practically shouting. The whole situation felt surreal. We never fought like this, but I couldn't back down. Not this time. This wasn't about a few $100s anymore. This was about respect. It was about whether my husband was a partner to me or just a son and a brother to them. As if on cue, the sound we'd been half expecting finally came. The click of Elena's bedroom door opening. But she didn't storm out. She emerged. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. She was holding a small, shabby-looking overnight bag, the one she used when my father-in-law was in the hospital. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. She clutched a tissue in her other hand and dabbed at her eyes, letting out a soft, theatrical sob. She didn't look at me, her gaze fixed on a point on the floor somewhere between her and her son. "Sarah is right," she whispered, her voice trembling and pathetic. "I'm just a burden to you both. I'll go. Chloe said I can stay with her for a while. On the couch. It's no trouble." Mark's face crumpled. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. He saw his elderly, widowed mother cast out with a pathetic little bag, about to go sleep on the lumpy couch of her train-wrecked daughter. The guilt was a physical force, and it hit him like a tidal wave. This was the checkmate move. Elena knew her son better than I did. She knew exactly which buttons to press. "Don't be ridiculous, Mom," he said, rushing to her side, trying to take the bag from her. "You're not going anywhere." She pulled the bag closer to her chest. No, I've caused enough trouble. I should have known my place." She finally lifted her eyes to meet his, and they were swimming with perfectly formed tears. "I just want my children to be happy." It was disgusting. A masterclass in manipulation. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Mark to open his eyes and see the strings she was pulling. But before I could say a word, he turned to face me. The look on his face wasn't just anger anymore. It was a deep, profound disappointment, as if he was looking at a stranger he no longer recognized. "Is this what you wanted, Sarah?" he asked, his voice cold and quiet, which was so much worse than shouting. To make my 65-year-old mother feel so unwelcome in her own son's home that she thinks her only option is to sleep on a couch in a cockroach-infested apartment? I thought we were a team. I guess I was wrong. You don't get to do this. You don't get to decide who is and isn't my family. He took the bag from his mother's unresisting hand and set it on the floor. Then he put a protective arm around her shoulder and looked me dead in the eye. "She's staying, and you will apologize." Apologize. The word hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. Apologize for what? For expecting a grown woman to keep her word. For wanting my own husband to prioritize our shared future over his sister's manufactured emergencies? I looked at Mark, his arm wrapped around his mother's frail shoulders, a human shield of misplaced loyalty. Elena, for her part, leaned into him, a silent, weeping victim, her eyes downcast. But I caught a flicker, a momentary glint of triumph in her gaze before she hid her face in his chest. That was all I needed to see. The ice in my veins from before began to burn. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it landed in the room with the force of a wrecking ball. Mark's head snapped up. "What did you say?" I said, "No, I will not apologize." I took a step forward, my hands clenched at my sides. "I will not apologize for being angry that your mother once again took the money we all agreed would go towards our home and gave it to your 32-year-old sister who refuses to get a job. I will not apologize for calling her out on a lie she told directly to your face. And I certainly will not apologize for suggesting that if she wants to fund Chloe's lifestyle, she should go live with Chloe and see how long the free ride lasts." Elena let out a wounded gasp, a sound effect perfectly timed to twist the knife in Mark's heart. "Sarah, please," she whimpered, "don't fight because of me." "We are fighting because of you, Elena. I said, my voice as sharp as glass. I refused to let her play the peacemaker in a war she had started. I turned my attention back to my husband. Look at her, Mark. Look at us. This is their game. She creates the problem. Chloe creates the drama, and you are expected to swoop in and fix it, usually at my expense, at our expense. And the moment I refuse to play along, I become the monster. She's my mother, he repeated, his voice cracking with frustration. She's grieving. She's vulnerable. And Chloe is her daughter. Of course she's going to help her. Grief is not a free pass for financial irresponsibility and constant deception, I retorted. And vulnerability is not an excuse to manipulate your son into turning against his wife. She isn't just helping Chloe. She is enabling her. And by letting her do it with our resources in our home, you are enabling them both. I was pleading with him, trying to break the spell. But he was too far gone, lost in the fog of filial guilt. He looked from his mother's tear-streaked face to my hard, angry one, and he made his choice. I can't believe you, he said, shaking his head slowly. I can't believe how cold you're being. This isn't you. No, Mark. This is me finally standing up for myself, for us. The version of me you prefer is the one who quietly eats spaghetti for the 5th night in a row while your mother drains our savings account. That version of me is gone. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. He gently guided his mother to the armchair, the one she loved to sit in, and she sank into it like a wilting flower. Mom, you just sit here. I'll handle this. He walked towards me until he was standing just a few feet away, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper so his mother wouldn't overhear. You've made your point, Sarah, loud and clear, but you are going to walk over there, and you are going to tell my mother you're sorry for the way you spoke to her. We will sort out the money later, but right now, you will apologize for the disrespect. The ultimatum was clear, me versus them. Our marriage versus his family ties. And in that moment, I knew that if I caved, if I apologized, I would be setting a precedent for the rest of our lives. I would be greenlighting this behavior forever. Every month would be a new drama, a new crisis, a new raid on our finances, and I would be expected to just smile and take it. The dream of our house, of our future, would die right here in this living room, smothered by his inability to set a single boundary. My spine straightened. I felt a strange calm settle over me. And if I don't? His jaw tightened. He looked past me, towards the front door, as if the answer was out there. Then maybe you should be the one to go stay somewhere else for a night or two, until you can cool off and see things clearly. The breath left my body in a rush. He was kicking me out. Not her, me. He was choosing the woman who had lied and stolen from us over the wife who was fighting for their future. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it almost didn't feel real. It was like watching a scene from a movie, and I was just an observer. I stared at him, at the man I had promised to build a life with, and I saw a stranger. A man so entangled in his family's dysfunction that he would rather throw me out than confront it. Behind him, I saw Elena. She was watching us, no longer pretending to cry. Her expression was neutral, waiting to see who would win. A slow, cold fury began to build inside me. You want me to leave? I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Just until you calm down, he said, though his tone lacked conviction. He already knew he'd crossed a line. Fine. I turned without another word and walked towards our bedroom. I could feel his eyes on my back, a mix of shock and regret. He probably expected me to pack an overnight bag, go to a friend's house, and come back tomorrow, tail between my legs, ready to apologize. He had no idea what he had just unleashed. I didn't grab a duffel bag. I went straight to my closet and pulled out my largest suitcase. Then I went to the dresser and started pulling out my clothes, not just for a night, but all of them. Sweaters, jeans, t-shirts. I moved to the closet and started taking down my dresses, my work clothes. The message would be unmistakable. As I was pulling a stack of my files and my laptop from the desk in the corner, I saw it. Tucked away in the back of the file drawer was a thick manila envelope. My heart stopped. I'd almost forgotten. It was the complete folder from the real estate agent with all the final paperwork and financial statements for the house we were supposed to close on in 3 weeks, the house for which we needed every last cent. Mark's name wasn't on any of it yet. To make the application process simpler, everything, the pre-approval, the offer, the down payment account, was solely in my name. My fingers closed around the thick manila envelope. The paper felt solid, real, a stark contrast to the flimsy, treacherous bank receipt that had started this nightmare. Everything was in here: the mortgage pre-approval, the signed purchase agreement, the bank statements from the high-yield savings account where our down payment was slowly, painstakingly accumulating, an account that was only in my name. It hadn't been a strategic move, not at first. My credit score was slightly higher than Mark's, and since the majority of the down payment had come from an inheritance my grandmother left me, the mortgage broker had advised us to put the application in my name alone to streamline the process. "We can add him to the title after closing," she'd said with a breezy wave of her hand. "It's easier this way." Mark had agreed, eager to avoid any potential snags. We were a team after all. What was mine was his, or so I had thought. I stared at the envelope, the weight of it in my hands suddenly immense. This wasn't just paper. This was the house, our dream. The 3-bedroom colonial with the big backyard and the sunny kitchen nook. I could picture it perfectly, the spot where we'd put the Christmas tree. The wall I wanted to paint that deep shade of blue. It was a future I had fought for, sacrificed for, and planned for. And in this moment, looking at this folder, a cold, hard clarity washed over me. It was my future. I was the one on the loan. I was the one whose inheritance formed the bedrock of the down payment. And I was the one being told to leave. A switch flipped inside me. The hurt and betrayal didn't vanish, but they were overtaken by a steely resolve. He wanted me to leave? Fine. But I wouldn't be the only one losing something tonight. I tucked the envelope securely into my laptop bag and continued packing, my movements now brisk and efficient. There were no tears, no hesitation. I was a woman on a mission. I zipped the overflowing suitcase, grabbed my laptop bag and my purse, and rolled it all out into the living room. The scene was exactly as I'd left it. Mark was standing awkwardly in the middle of the room, a look of dawning horror on his face as he took in the size of my luggage. He had clearly expected a small overnight bag, a symbolic gesture, not this declaration of finality. Elena was still in her armchair, but she was no longer the wilting flower. She sat upright, a hawk watching a mouse, her face a mask of wary disbelief. "Sarah, what is this?" Mark asked, his voice strained. "I said for a night, to cool off. This is crazy." "You're right," I said, stopping in front of him. "It is crazy. It's crazy that I have worked 60-hour weeks to save for a home that your mother sees as a slush fund for her adult daughter. It's crazy that you just witnessed her lie to your face and still chose to punish me for it. And it's absolutely insane that you thought you could kick your wife out of her own apartment and that she would just meekly come back tomorrow and apologize. The crazy part, Mark, is that it took me this long to see that I'm the only one in this relationship who's actually working towards our future." I saw the protest forming on his lips, the denial, the excuses. I didn't give him a chance to voice them. "Don't worry," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I'm not leaving you with nothing. I'm leaving you with your family. It's what you chose." I turned to Elena. She flinched as my gaze fell on her. "Congratulations, Elena. You won. You got what you wanted. You don't have to worry about me nagging you about your financial responsibilities anymore. From now on, you and Chloe can have all of Mark's money. I'm sure you'll all be very happy together." Her face paled, the victory she'd felt moments before curdling into fear. She finally seemed to understand that she hadn't just won a minor skirmish. She had detonated a bomb in the foundation of her own comfortable life. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked to the front door, dragging my suitcase behind me. The wheels clattering on the hardwood floor sounded like a countdown. Mark just stood there, stunned into silence, as I opened the door. "Wait, Sarah," he finally choked out, taking a step towards me. "Don't do this. We can talk about this. We can fix it." I paused in the doorway and looked back at him, at the life I was leaving behind. "You had your chance to talk about this when you sided with her over me. You had your chance to fix this when you demanded I apologize for telling the truth." I gave him a small, sad smile. "You made your choice, Mark. Now you get to live with it. I hope it was worth it." I stepped out into the hallway and closed the door behind me, the click of the latch echoing with finality. I didn't look back. I called an Uber and booked a hotel room for the week on my phone. As I stood on the curb, waiting, a sense of dizzying freedom washed over me. It was terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. The life I had planned was gone, but so was the constant weight of their dysfunction. The next morning, sitting in the sterile quiet of my hotel room with a cup of lukewarm coffee, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my bank. I moved every penny from our joint checking account. My entire paycheck had been deposited that morning into my personal savings, leaving just enough to cover the rent check Mark had likely already written. The second call was to our real estate agent, a cheerful woman named Brenda. "Brenda, hi, it's Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "Listen, something has come up. I need to pull my offer on the house on Elm Street." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Sarah, what? But you were so excited." "Closing is in 3 weeks. What happened?" "Personal circumstances have changed," I said, offering no further explanation. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I know this is terrible, but it's not possible for me to move forward." We spoke for a few more minutes, Brenda expressing her sympathies and explaining the process of formally withdrawing the offer. After I hung up, I sat in silence, a strange sense of calm settling over me. It was done. The dream was dead. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. "Sarah, please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry." I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another text. "The rent check bounced. Did you take the money out of the account? What are you doing?" I ignored that one too. Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Curious, I answered it. "Hello? Is this Sarah?" a woman's voice asked. It was sharp, unfamiliar. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Joanne Peterson," she said. "I'm the listing agent for the house on Elm Street. Brenda told me you pulled your offer." "Yes, I did," I said, confused. "I'm very sorry about—" "Don't be," she cut me off. "Actually, I'm calling for another reason. About 5 minutes ago, a man named Mark called my office. He was frantic. Said there was a huge misunderstanding, that you didn't mean to pull the offer, and that he wants to move forward with the purchase himself. He said he could get the funds together." She paused and her voice became conspiratorial. "He also let slip that you were his wife and that most of the down payment was your money. So, I thought I should probably call you directly. He sounds desperate." A humorless laugh escaped my lips. Desperate. It was the perfect word for it. Mark, stripped of his comfortable life and the future he took for granted, was now scrambling, trying to glue the pieces of our shattered dream back together with nothing but bluster and entitlement. The idea of him trying to buy that house on his own was so ludicrous, it was almost pitiable. With what money? His entire savings wouldn't cover the closing costs, let alone the down payment. He was trying to claim a future he had just willingly thrown away. "Thank you for calling me, Joanne," I said, my voice steady and firm. "I appreciate you doing your due diligence. And just to be crystal clear, there has been no misunderstanding. The offer is withdrawn. I will not be moving forward with the purchase, and Mark has absolutely no legal or financial claim to that contract or the funds associated with it. He is not authorized to speak on my behalf." "That's what I figured," Joanne said, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Don't worry, I'll handle him. You take care of yourself, honey." I hung up the phone feeling a profound sense of closure. Mark's desperate, flailing attempt to reclaim the house wasn't just about the property. It was about control. He'd tried to control me by demanding an apology, by kicking me out, and now he was trying to control the narrative, to undo the consequences of his own actions. But the power had shifted. I held all the cards, the money, the pre-approval, the contract, and I was choosing to fold. For the next 2 days, I lived in a bubble of administrative tasks. I found a new apartment, a small but sunny 1-bedroom in a part of town I'd always loved. I paid the deposit and first month's rent with the money that was supposed to have been for our old life. I arranged for movers to get my half of the furniture out of the apartment I'd shared with Mark. I sent him a curt email detailing the time and date, informing him that my brother would be there to supervise. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear his voice. His texts and voicemails continued, a deluge of panicked, then pleading, then angry messages. They painted a vivid picture of the chaos I had left behind. Elena was apparently beside herself with guilt. Chloe had called him screaming that I had ruined her mother's life. The apartment felt empty. He was sorry. He'd made a terrible mistake. He loved me. He needed me. I listened to them once, a detached observer cataloging the predictable stages of his regret. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry for the consequences he was now facing. He wasn't mourning the loss of me, his partner, but the loss of the comfortable life I had provided, the mother's maid, the sister's ATM, the wife who paid the bills and kept the dream alive while he played the role of the good son. On moving day, I stayed at a coffee shop down the street while my brother, Tom, handled the movers. He texted me updates. He tried to talk to me. I told him to back off. His mom is here. She's just sitting on the couch crying. Got your desk and the good lamp. He tried to say the lamp was a household item. I reminded him my grandmother gave it to you. Finally, Tom texted, all done. Meet you at the new place. Walking into my own apartment for the first time, surrounded by my own things, was a revelation. It was small, but it was mine. There was no spare bedroom for a manipulative mother-in-law. There was no space for drama or guilt. It was a blank canvas. That evening, as I was unpacking my books, my phone rang. It was Mark. For the first time, I answered. Sarah, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank God. I've been so worried. Are you okay? I'm fine, Mark. The apartment, it's half empty. Your things are gone. Sarah, what are you doing? This isn't a breakup. It's a fight, a bad fight. We can get through this. I'll go to counseling. Mom will apologize. She'll pay you back. I'll make sure of it. I leaned against my new kitchen counter, looking out the window at the city lights. Pay me back with what, Mark? Her pension for the next 6 months? What happens after that? What's the plan for the next time Chloe has a crisis? And the time after that? There is no plan. Because you will never choose me. You will never choose us over them. You proved that. That's not true, he insisted, his voice cracking. I made a mistake. I was trying to keep the peace. No, I interrupted, my voice calm and final. You were trying to keep your mother happy. You were trying to keep your sister happy. And you were willing to sacrifice my happiness and our future to do it. You didn't just ask me to tolerate their behavior. You demanded I apologize for not enabling it. You kicked me out of our home to protect your mother's feelings after she lied to and stole from us. That isn't a mistake, Mark. That's a choice, and it's a choice I can't live with. A long, heavy silence stretched between us. I could hear his shallow breaths, the sound of his world crumbling. So that's it? He whispered. It's just over? It was over the moment you said, she's staying, and you will apologize. I took a deep breath. I have a new apartment, Mark. I've started a new life. I suggest you figure out how to live yours. Your mother is still in the armchair, right? You have everything you chose. I hope you're happy. I ended the call before he could reply and blocked his number. I blocked Chloe's and Elena's too. I sat there in the quiet of my new home, the silence no longer feeling empty, but peaceful. It was the sound of freedom. A few months later, I ran into an old mutual friend who told me, reluctantly, that Mark and his mother had been forced to move into a smaller, much less desirable apartment after I left, as they couldn't afford the rent on their own. Elena's entire pension was now officially the Chloe Support Fund, and Mark was working 2 jobs, looking permanently exhausted, just to make ends meet for the 3 of them. I felt a brief, fleeting pang of something not pity, but a sad nostalgia for the man I thought he was. But it passed. I had just put in a new offer on a house, a smaller one, a condo with a balcony just big enough for a chair and a few pots of herbs. It was all mine. The down payment was secure, my future was bright, and the only person I had to answer to was myself. I had lost a husband, but I had gained my life back, and I knew with absolute certainty I had made the right choice.